Hello everyone, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. We're back and it is oh so good to be back, as if we are recording podcasts again, then that must mean that hockey season is right around the corner. Just under a month to go now until the Capitals open up their main training camp. So we've got a lot of content coming up for you all in this next month and for the whole season for that matter. And I do want to share with you all right off the bat that we've decided to make a change to our podcasting schedule. I don't know if I can call it a change to the schedule because we really didn't even have a schedule before. But as you know, we launched this podcast late last season. We only got about 13 or 14 episodes in before the Caps were knocked out of the playoffs by Carolina. And it's pretty incredible to us the amount of listeners whose attention we were able to catch just in that short span of time. So for this season, we want to reward our listeners. So beginning this season, we're going to have more episodes and more consistent episodes with new episodes coming every Monday and Thursday. So as Caps fans, you can count on that. You're going to have something to listen to on the drive to work every Monday and every Thursday morning. Or even if you don't have a job and therefore don't have a commute, still, please listen to us. Listen while you're at the gym, while you're out for a run, while you're cooking in the kitchen, while you're taking a particularly difficult and long-lasting dump. Podcasts are the new newspapers, right? No, that's sad. I still like newspapers. We're going to talk today about the Capitals off-season. The off-season, of course, is mostly over now. Just a few small loose ends to tie up for most teams, unless, of course, you are the Toronto Maple Leafs, planning on having Mitch Marner walk you down the plank with a gun to your head all the way into training camp. But thankfully, the Caps don't have any such restricted free agent problems. No, the Caps have taken care of most of their business already. So to recap everything that's happened so far, we already did talk in our previous episode about the Niskanen trade for Radko Gudas, and we had already talked about Carl Hagelin re-signing with the Caps for 4 more years as well. Those are both good things. Since our last episode, Andrei Burakovsky has also been traded to the Colorado Avalanche. That's also a good thing if you ask me, or ask really anyone with 2 eyeballs, available for watching all of Berkey's neutral zone turnovers and insanely weak board play. The Caps as well signed free agent forwards Richard Panik, Garnet Hathaway, and Brendan Lepsic. Again, all good moves. And they re-signed forward Jakub Vrana as well. That was a big key to this being considered a successful offseason, as Jake the Snake has become an integral part of Washington's vaunted top 6 forward group. And they also re-signed young depth guys such as Chandler Stevenson and Christian Juice. Again, we're listing all of the good things that happened first, because I am all about positivity in life and certainly in hockey. Unless we lose to the Penguins, in which case you can find me drinking a big jug of antifreeze as if it's orange juice. And don't worry, we are going to break down all of these moves in just a minute here. But first, we have to recap a few of the less good things that have happened this offseason. The first and by far the biggest was Brett Connolly being let go in free agency. He ultimately ended up signing with the Florida Panthers, and then we had Brooks Orpik retiring, which, depending on who you ask, is either a good thing or a bad thing. But if you ask his teammates and his coaches, it's a bad thing. So I'm going to go with them. And then there's Devontae Smith-Pelly, one of the many heroes for Washington in the 2018 Stanley Cup playoffs, who is still without a contract. I don't know. Some people say there's no way that he will be back. Others say there's still a chance. Again, it depends on who you ask. If you're asking me, I say there's still a chance. I think, judging by Brian McClellan's comments, it's going to depend on what type of physical shape DSP is in come time for training camps to open up. And if that's the case, then it makes sense that he would still be without a contract. The Caps are waiting to see if he's in shape or not. However, if he is not re-signed by the Caps, then I'm listing this among the bad things that happened this offseason. Sentimentally, of course, but also because no matter how useless he was during the regular season, his impact in the playoffs has always been undeniable for the Caps. So I would, of course, like to hang on to that if we could. I don't care if he shoots blanks all regular season long, as long as you score when it counts. That's all that matters to me. The Caps have more than enough to get to the playoffs without DSP scoring, but it's once you get there that he can help a lot, as we've already seen. So essentially, you've got Connolly, Burakovsky, Niskanen, Orpik, and possibly Smith-Pelly out. Panic, Hathaway, Lepsic, and Gudis in, with Vrana, Hagelin, Stevenson, and Juice all back as well. So let's figure this out. Are the Caps better or worse now on paper than they were in the 2018-2019 season? Well, there's a few really easy comparables here, players-wise. Gudis replaces Orpik. That's easy, so let's start with that. Radko Gudas plays a very similar style of game to that of Brooks Orpik in that Gudas is also a hard-hitting, stay-at-home defender who also happens to be one mean son of a bitch. He's also a very reliable penalty killer, much like Brooks Orpik. But that's basically where the similarities end. Because while their overall games are very similar, the underlying numbers are not. For Brooks Orpik, we know that the advanced stats have never been too kind to him. For Radko Gudas, many people may not know this, but basically the polar opposite is true for him. The advanced stats love Radko Gudas. In particular, he's great at suppressing opponents' shots and shot attempts. Opposition teams see far fewer quality scoring chances for when Radko Gudas is on the ice. His teams get more scoring chances and high danger chances for than the opposition does when he is on the ice. Simply put, he is a good player, and there's a reason why the analytics community loves him. While they all simultaneously bend over to take a shit on anything that even rhymes with Brooks Orpik. Orpik's leadership qualities will certainly be missed, and sentimentally, it sucks to see him go. But as far as on-ice performance is concerned, Gudas is definitely an upgrade, and the Caps will be better off with Gudas on the ice than with Orpik on the ice. As for Matt Niskanen, to me, that's addition by subtraction for the Caps. Niskanen's on-ice performance had fallen off of a cliff over the last two seasons, and I think the Caps traded him at just the right time. It was a time when a small number of general managers, Chuck Fletcher of the Flyers obviously being one of them, probably wrongly, if you ask me, I think that Niskanen can still bounce back. Personally, I just don't see it happening. I watched him play too many games over these last 2 years, and I didn't at all like what I saw. I really believe it's just his age starting to show, and the Caps cut the cord just in time to get out from under the contract. The perfect example is Niskanen's shot attempt percentage over the last 5 seasons. His shot attempt percentage, basically, his only 5 seasons as a member of the Caps. Let's just look at those 5 seasons. So his first 3 seasons with the Caps, he had a shot attempt percentage of 53%, 52%, and 56%. But the 56% in the 2016-2017 season was the end of the good times, as over these last 2 years, it dropped to 49% in 2017-2018, and then down again to a miserable 45% last season. So it wasn't as if it was just one bad season, an anomaly. No, it's 2 seasons in a row that he was tumbling face first down a hill, and it had become a pattern. And again, I suspect that it is just the natural trajectory a career follows when you start to age a little bit. Either way, the Caps defense will be better off without him in 2019-2020 and beyond. Besides the trade that the Caps made for 28-year-old Nick Jensen, who is basically the version of Matt Niskanen from about 4 years ago, pretty much made 32-year-old Niskanen disposable to the Caps, as sad as that is to say. He's a good guy, and obviously we love him and thank him eternally for all that he did in his time here with our Caps, but it is a business, and sometimes hard goodbyes have to be said. I personally will not lose any sleep over it, given especially that his trade also frees up the cap space that will be necessary to re-sign our Lord and Savior St. Nicholas Backstrom. So sorry, Niskanen, but all's well that ends well. We'll always have 2018. We'll always have Las Vegas. And now, looking at the changes to the forward corps, you know, the Caps have had an amazing forward group, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire league for many years now. And I would say up until this past postseason, there was really no reason to change anything. Even after this postseason, of course, we got knocked out in the first round, so that's obviously not what you want. But that was also minus TJ Oshie. We have to remember that. We all know he has a huge impact on this team. And so I would still say there's certainly no reason to change anything in the top 6. As they always do what they do, which is score goals and score lots of goals. But the one area that I did think needed a shakeup after watching the 2019 postseason was the bottom 6. Certainly, it was almost exactly the same bottom six that had won the Stanley Cup just a year prior, but sometimes things get stale, and that's what it looked like to me. The Caps needed a little bit of new blood, and so in this offseason, Brian McClellan went out shopping. Now, given the Caps' tight salary cap situation, he was kind of shopping in the bargain bin, not at the Versace or the Louis Vuitton, where the Artemi Panarins of the world hang out. But what he was able to do with limited cap space was pretty amazing. First off, obviously, he had to re-sign Jakub Vrana. The kid is a future star in the making, so check that off the list. McClellan got that done. He also wanted to re-sign Carl Hagelin, as it's pretty crazy how much the Caps numbers in basically every statistical category improved so dramatically virtually as soon as they made the trade for Hagelin just a few days before the deadline back in February. So check, again, tick that one off on the to-do list, as well as McClellan locked up Hagelin for 4 more years at a very reasonable cap hit. And then, like I said, we go bargain bin hunting in the unrestricted free agent market. And McClellan finds us a few gems to add to an already diamond-studded lineup. The first UFA fish to be reeled in by Mac this summer was Richard Panik, who is the obvious replacement for the departed Brett Connolly. So how do Connor and Panik compare to one another? They're pretty similar players. They shoot the puck a similar amount, both around 13 shot attempts per hour, and they both go to the net often, hunting down the rebounds. The big difference between the two was Connor's sky-high shooting percentage this past season. Brett shot 15.8% in 2018-2019, well above his career average of 13.6%, while Panik shot just 10%, which was well below his career average of 11.6%. So while there was a big gap in the shooting percentages of the two players this past season, an almost 6% gap to be exact, their career averages see them having only a 2% gap between the two of them, which is probably more reliable for us to look at. So we can expect to see a regression in Connolly's sharp shooting this upcoming season, whereas we can expect to see a return to a higher shooting percentage for Panik. So while Connolly certainly has an edge in sharp shooting abilities over Panik, the edge is not nearly as steep as one might think just upon a first glance at just last season's stats on their own. This is also made even more clear when you look at the goal totals for the two players. Their shooting percentages, of course, are reflected in their goal totals. So Connolly last season, again, he was shooting 15.8%. He put up 22 goals and 46 points in 81 games. Panik, shooting, again, 10%, put up 14 goals and 33 points in 75 games. But when you look at their overall career totals, which we don't mind doing because they're only a year apart in age, and so it's not as if one of them is slowing down while the other is heating up, Connolly has 79 goals in 427 games played, while Panik has 75 goals in 410 games played. And again, that's because their career average shooting percentages are not that far apart from one another, and they shoot the puck at an almost identical rate to one another. So with that, you get nearly identical goal totals over the course of their two careers so far. Overall, offensively, I'd probably give a slight edge to Connor over Panik, but again, we have to take last season's numbers with a grain of salt, or maybe a bag of salt, because although we've already addressed the wonky shooting percentages for last season, we haven't even yet mentioned the biggest factor playing into the offensive numbers of these two players, which is that one of them got to play for the high-flying, ultra-offensively gifted Washington Capitals, while the other had to suit up for the Arizona Coyotes. So let that sink in for a moment, and then you let me know if you trust the offensive numbers for either player. But anyways, for now, slight edge offensively to Brett Connolly, but while the two are very similar players offensively, and they're both defensively responsible as well, the big difference between the two comes physically. Richard Panik is a much more physical player than Connolly is, much more inclined to use his body to impose his will on others. His 137 hits last season would have placed him third among Capitals forwards, behind only Alex Ovechkin and Tom Wilson, two big boys who you really don't want to fuck with. Panik, had he been a Cap last season, would have been tied for fourth on the team overall for hits. Connolly, by contrast, had only 53 hits, even though he played 6 more games than Panik. Connolly was 14th on the Caps and 9th among forwards on the Caps for hits. So big difference there. And Brian McClellan certainly wasn't finished yet as far as physicality is concerned, because he also signed UFA forward Garnet Hathaway, formerly of the Calgary Flames, a badass fourth liner who will drop the gloves, throw huge checks, and get under the skin of opponents. He's also got quite a bit better numbers offensively than your average fourth liner. He's got quite a bit more offensive skill than the average fourth liner. He put up 11 goals with the Flames last season, and then McClellan signed Brendan Lepsick as well, also projected to play on the fourth line for the Caps. And again, he's got more skill offensively than your average fourth liner, as he put up 23 points in just 62 NHL games last season with the Vancouver Canucks and Los Angeles Kings. Neither of those teams score a lot of goals, so perhaps it's even more impressive that Lepsick was able to put up 23 points in 62 games with those two teams. The other big-ish change, as mentioned earlier, was that the Caps traded Andrei Burakovsky to the Colorado Avalanche. But again, similar to the trade of Matt Niskanen, for my money, this is addition by subtraction for the Caps. Burakovsky's development had hit a wall. He'd put up identical goal totals, 12 goals in each of the last 3 seasons, and he actually took 20 more games to do it last season than he did this season before. And he had just never turned into the player that the Caps had hoped he could be when they drafted him in the first round in 2013. The Caps, of course, have a great record as far as the draft is concerned, but this is, I think you would consider this one of the rare misses for sure. With young guys, you must have patience, but that patience also has to have a limit as well. The Caps obviously had reached the limit with Andrei Burakovsky. At age 24 now, he's not all that young anymore in hockey years. This is already supposed to be the prime of his scoring career, and his career high is still stuck at 12 goals. A very comparable player and comparable first-round pick, Jakub Vrana, who is younger than Burakovsky, has already cracked off 24 goals last season. That is what the Caps had hoped for out of Burakovsky, but they never got it. Luckily, they got it from Vrana, and so they were free to let go of Burakovsky, who for 12 goals and about 250 neutral zone turnovers per season had become far too expensive. The Caps' defensive side of the puck will undoubtedly be better off next season without Burakovsky skating around aimlessly out there, flipping the puck right to the sticks of onrushing opponents, and fucking shit up. So adios, Berkey. And I've already said it, but I think if Devontae Smith-Pelly ends up elsewhere, we won't feel the effects of it so much in the regular season as much as we will in the playoffs. I hope he resigns. I really love the guy, and I truly believe he brings even more of an element that helps to make the Caps great. A certain attitude, a certain swagger, a certain chemistry. It's all intangible stuff, but you know what? The goals that he scores for us in the playoffs are very tangible. So please re-sign him, Mac. So, with all that, are the Caps better or worse than they were last season? Let's break it down. Well, the top 6 is still the same. That's a good thing, obviously. Alex Ovechkin does not age, so that one's easy. The top 6 will be every bit as completely deadly as it was last season, just as it is every season. Moving on. The third line, I would say losing Connolly and Burakovsky, but adding Panik and Hagelin, will be slightly worse offensively, but much better defensively. Again, looking at you, Berkey. And the fourth line, I'm calling it right now, will be much, much better than any of the 157 combinations that we saw Todd Reirden try there last season. Adding Hathaway is a huge upgrade, and likewise Lepsick is a very good player as well. It will be a totally new look to that fourth line. You can mark my words on that. The only guy who was consistently good in all 3 zones on that fourth line for the Caps last season was Nick Dowd, and with the Caps re-signing him to a 3-year contract extension in season last season, the fourth line will have some much needed stability going forward. I like the look of our new fourth line. I like it a lot. As for the defense, it's definitely better with Nick Jensen getting an expanded role in the absence of Matt Niskanen, and with Radko Gudas over the retired Brooks Orpik. I think we'll see a lot fewer goals against in the upcoming season as compared to last season. And of course, we still retained our depth with our younger players by re-signing Chandler Stevenson and Christian Juice, so that's always good. Overall, I think we will see a similar Capitals team offensively to what we had the joy of witnessing last season. as most of the heavy lifting is done by the big guns anyway, and their guns are definitely still just as big. Like I said, the top six completely unchanged. That is a great thing. Mark Ovechkin down for 50 goals again, while the third line may see a bit of a dip in production. Some of the younger top six guys, Vrana and Wilson in particular, have been and are trending up every single year, and they're bound to continue their development and build even more off of a successful campaign last season. So that should make up for any small dip that we might see from the third line. And the fourth line will definitely score more this season than it did last season. You can take that to the bank. But I think the big difference between last season's team and this season's team will come on the defensive side of the puck, where I expect to see a big improvement. Of course, it won't be hard to improve upon what the Caps did last season defensively, but I think our play in our own end will be a lot better. I think we'll see less turnovers, and I think we'll have the puck more. And of course, more puck possession equates to fewer chances for the opposition to get to your net. So I'm looking forward to that. All in all, I think it's going to be another great season, so buckle up. Like I alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, we've got lots of great content coming up here in the weeks leading up to training camp, so I hope you all enjoy it, and as always, thank you very much for listening. Excited to get another season going here, and let's go Caps!